Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris is now on the Audacy app and Audacy.com.
Now, it's time for Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Here's your host, Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris right here on the Audacy app and wherever you get your podcast for our September edition. A pleasure to have Jim Ducibella. We've had him on Sports Highlights and Sports Scene several times. Hampton Roads Sports Media Hall of Fame, Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Jimmy, how are you?
Great, Greg. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Let's start off with the team that you covered so well, Washington and the Commanders. They're 1-1. They really dodged a bullet, because the Giants were not prepared with a backup field goal kicker at all.
Yeah, they did. They dodged a bullet. They finally got lucky. That's such a weird series, and so many crazy things have happened over the years, most especially the all-pro style emergence of Daniel Jones against them and nobody else, that they were kind of due for a break, and they certainly got a huge one when Brian Daboll did not elevate the second-string kicker up and instead opted to go with two-point conversion attempts and the punter.
I like Daboll. I watched a lot of his press conferences, but sometimes I think his arrogance might blind him. You cannot go into an NFL game on the road with perfect weather conditions. You can have anybody kicking a field goal, and he really blew that opportunity because they did get to the red zone.
What I'm amazed at so far in the early NFL season is how many coaches have made the wrong decisions under pressure. Experienced veteran guys like Daboll and Nick Sirianni the other night with Philadelphia. And I think sometimes these guys, like you said, they do outsmart themselves. And those are two prime examples right there. Sirianni not running the ball on third down and instead trying to pass to Saquon Barkley for the first down that would ice the game, and giving Atlanta an extra 40 seconds they needed to go down the field and score a shocking game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, 8 new coaches in 2024, and one of the better ones is Harbaugh. But Washington is 1-1, and the optics of 1-1, Jim, are a lot better than going into Week 3 being 0-2.
Right. Well, as far as chances of playoffs, and I know it's ridiculous that after 2 weeks to talk about them, but you go from a reasonable chance at making the playoffs if you're 1-1 to virtually no chance of making them if you're 0-2. At least that's what history tells us.
So next up is the Bengals. That's not going to be an easy out. They're tired. They got a close game against Kansas City. You know they're going to be fired up playing at home.
Yeah, they're not a typical 0-2 team, clearly. And they've got Joe Burrow, who is one of the league's outstanding young quarterbacks. They are playing at home, and I think that until Washington shows that it can have a consistent passing game, which they have not done so far, they're a little bit easy to defend against. And I think they should be a reasonable favorite, the Bengals.
2 games on Monday Night Football this coming Monday, the Jaguars and the Bills at 7:30 on ESPN, and then, of course, Washington's playing at the Bengals at 8:15 on ABC. So that's always interesting to see 2 games going on at once as well. But let's look at the NFC East. You talk about the Giants are 0-2, the Eagles are 1-1, and the Cowboys are 1-1. And this is a must-win game for the Ravens, who are playing against the Cowboys. They can't afford to go 0-3.
No, without question, and I think that they've lost 2 really kind of stunning games as far as I can see. I mean, losing to Kansas City is certainly no disgrace by any stretch of the imagination, particularly there, and particularly the way that game came down with that guy's toe over the end line, negating a touchdown that would have sent the game into overtime. I mean, they've had some hard luck, and they're a little bit looking at their offense is a little bit like looking at Washington's offense or vice versa, in that they've got a brilliant running quarterback, and the passing attack is very iffy and very erratic, and you never know from one week to the next how Lamar Jackson is going to throw the ball, and you never know how well the receivers are going to perform. And I think that defensively they've been surprisingly lax as far as I'm concerned, whereas Washington's defense is clearly, at this point in time, a sieve.
And you look at Washington's quarterback, he likes to run the ball. Hurts does, Fields, so forth. But what's going on in Carolina is just a mental debacle what's going on as far as everything. What a start for Canales.
And I think benching the quarterback is the smart thing to do in the short term. Clearly, Andy Dalton is not a long-term answer for anybody at this stage of his career. And I think giving a couple of weeks off and letting Dalton handle the reins for a couple of weeks can only be good. It can't. God knows it can't hurt anything the way things are going down there.
And nothing against Bryce Young, but you remember back in the days, quarterbacks would wait several years before they would play. Now they're making so much money they can't sit him on the bench. But in my opinion, Bryce Young was a prophecy misread.
Yeah, part of it is, of course, you got the college pedigree, and people get, even NFL people get blown away by what they see when teams run up the score on other teams. But yeah, you're right. He was a gamble, and it was certainly they gave up a ton to move up to get him as well. And I think that those are the kind of decisions that get people fired. And of course, they have gone through quite a few coordinators and coaches and everything else with the current ownership. But yeah, it was a terrible decision. They've been made before. I remember, and this is show you how old I am. I remember years ago, and I mean years ago, the Redskins traded up in order to get Gary Beeben from UCLA, who was a quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner, who was an absolute abysmal quarterback in the pros. Never played, or when he did play, he was awful. Didn't last for very long. And the legals, there's such an emphasis on quarterbacks and such an overemphasis, perhaps, on quarterbacks, particularly when you look around and see guys who are third, fourth, fifth round draft picks who emerge, or somebody like Purdy in San Francisco, who didn't even get any respect until the very, very end of the draft. Depending on your system, depending on your coaching, depending on the individual and how much he's willing to work and accept criticism and accept coaching, you don't have to be the first or second pick in the draft in order to be an effective NFL quarterback. And I think that may be changing. You have some exceptions. I do think Jaden Daniels and perhaps Caleb Williams are exceptions to that rule. They have so much talent that you have to take them early on if you have the opportunity. But there are plenty of other guys who are very effective NFL players who people weren't falling all over themselves to trade up to draft.
Gone are the long days ago, Jim, where Don Strock backed up Greasy, and then, of course, Marino. Those days are long gone. People don't have the patience anymore as well. Talking to Jim Ducibella, and, of course, this segment is sponsored by Chick-fil-A in Chesapeake and Edinburgh's. Right there, banana pudding shake, and, of course, their honey pepper pimento sandwich. I've had them both. They're very, very good. Jim, a lot of renovations at Northwest Stadium. They changed the name. The owners have their own individual suites now. They renovated it up there. And, of course, really just trying to do a fresh start. And, of course, the only way you can really get a fresh start is if you keep winning. And what are your thoughts, and what's the latest on the new stadium? Been quiet.
Well, I think I think Harris and company are angling for 2027, maybe even a little bit beyond. And obviously, I would say their first choice is to go back into the district and to build the kind of complex, maybe a quasi Jerry's World with housing, entertainment, restaurants, bars, places that people want to go, whether there's a game or not, and build those around a stadium. And I, honestly think, given the state of the metro and transportation in and out of there, having been improved some, transportation in D.C. is always going to be a nightmare, but less so perhaps now with the metro. That's the place to go. I mean, I can't see people going out to Prince William County, people from Maryland going to Prince William County to see a football game, and I can't see people from Prince William County coming all over into Landover on a regular basis or someplace other than that in Maryland to see a football game. So I firmly believe D.C. is their number one choice if they can get it, and that's the way to go. Frankly, they're the Washington Commanders, and put them right where they belong in the center of the city.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I do like the fact that at the new stadium there, as far as the new naming rights and everything, that you do have a parking lot you can walk. You don't have to worry about going through neighborhoods and, going through a lot of stoplights. I mean, everybody's pretty much in that one humongous parking lot. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, it's still a lot easier than have to worry about whose house you're going through or what neighborhood or what stoplight you're at. That part I do like. Let's switch gears to Old Dominion. Jim, they're 0-3, but of course they played 3 solid teams so far. South Carolina, East Carolina, Virginia Tech beat them by 20. They're off this week. But it doesn't seem like there's no buzz around Old Dominion football right now. None.
Well, they haven't given the fans any reason to have buzz at all. I mean, they're horribly limited on offense, and they're pretty doggone conservative. They've had a major problem of finding a suitable FBS quarterback. You look around the rest of the Sun Belt, and these schools are pulling in FBS quarterback transfers from all over the place, and no offense to Grant Wilson, who's, I'm sure, doing the best he can do before he was injured. You've got an FCS backup starting quarterback for an FBS program. It's a recipe for losing, and that's exactly what they're doing. They've got, for the second year in a row, I'd say they have a better than average defense, which spends 35, 40 minutes a game out on the field and wears down pretty consistently in the second half. And I just think that there's some – I'm not suggesting that there need to be coaching changes or anything like that at this point, but there needs to be a change of philosophy some way, somehow. If you have to put 50% of your NIL money into getting a decent FBS transfer quarterback, then do it. I mean, everybody knows it's the most important position on the field, and it's the position that most dictates whether you win or lose. And right now, they don't have enough ammunition at that position to be a viable contender in almost any game that they play, and that includes coming up a week and a half from now at Bowling Green, which is, and you look at the season at the beginning and you think, well, they can win that game, and yes, can they win it? Sure. Are they going to be favored to win it? No.
Yeah, Bowling Green is 1-1 right now as we stand, of course, but they've got confidence. Old Dominion doesn't. Real quick note about the NFL. Jim mentioned the 49ers and also the Rams. Both are hurting, and Seattle, has a chance. You never know that NFC West, and even Arizona, they prove they can score some points. One thing before we let you go, Jim, you've written a lot of golf books. You know the golf scene in Virginia very well, and of course, your thoughts still, on Kingsmill ever getting a professional golf tournament. You did send me several articles. It all comes down to money, but Kingsmill's a beautiful resort. You got Ford's Colony. It just seems like there's an empty vacancy there.
Well, the big problem, as you can well imagine, is the average PGA Tour purse in 2024 was $10 million. And that's the very bottom rung. The average LPGA purse was $3 million. You've got to find somebody some corporation, some whatever, that would come up with that kind of money, and that they've been lacking. I'm sure people have been trying. There is one thing. I'm working on an article about a golf tournament that ran in Virginia Beach from 1948 to 1950. It was called the Specialist Tournament. They had 2 captains, and each captain picked the player they thought was the best driver, the best long iron player, the best short iron player, the best putter, and the best what they called troubleshooter. And they had a one-day 18-hole playoff between those 2 teams. Now, 48, Gene Sarazen and Walter Hagen were the captains. So, and some of the great names, biggest name players of the day, came for some guaranteed prize money, and played in front of fairly decent crowds for the time at Cavalier Yacht and Golf Club. I could see something like that, a one-day event, a sort of weird, eccentric event. I could see that appealing to some people enough to draw a different kind of crowd. Maybe the Golf Channel would be interested in. Certainly, the Golf Channel would be interested in showing something like that at the very least. I could see that kind of niche event working, but you still have to have people to put it together, et cetera. But at this point in time, after so many years, I really seriously question whether a traditional golf tournament will ever come back to this particular region. We have senior golf in Richmond. We just finished the Solheim Cup in Northern Virginia. There's another tournament coming to Northern Virginia at Congressional coming up, and so I think that in the world, in golf and in the golf world and golf executives, they figure that's close enough for people to travel to if they're really interested. So I do think perhaps something like a niche type event that I just described could possibly work, at least in the short term, maybe 3 or 4 years.
When we get Jim back on, probably the first of the year, we'll ask him, of course, does he think Tiger Woods will ever win another major? And, of course, will 2025 possibly be his last year competing? Of course, he's got his son. Jim, all the best of health and happiness to you and your family, and we look forward to talking to you in the future.
All right, Greg. Thanks again, and talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Jim Ducibella right there, formerly of The Pilot and the Ledger Star. Stay tuned. Thanks to our good friends at Lee Matney Art Consultancy and Gallery, Photographs and Art Consulting right there in beautiful Williamsburg. Iconic paintings and photographs. They've got a lot of great resources, pop, art, surrealism, and of course, abstraction right there at Linda Matney Art Gallery, the Colonial Capital on Richmond Road. Google them, follow them on social media. Buffalo Wild Wings in Newport News. Great lunch and dinner, late night at Buffalo Wild Wings. Delicious food, wings, appetizers, beverages, all the games on TV. Open 7 days a week. Like Buffalo Wild Wings on Facebook. Friendly and hardworking staff. Jefferson Avenue in Newport News by Patrick Henry Mall. Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville and Virginia Beach, open daily for lunch and dinner. Mike and the staff will take good care of you. Burgers, steaks, salads, appetizers, desserts, and much more. Great atmosphere, nice bar, spacious dining room. 1255 Fordham Drive in Virginia Beach. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, open in Yorktown. Go by and see Paul and his wonderful staff. High-quality chicken fingers, fries, coleslaw, Texas toast. It is delicious. The great chicken sandwich, cane sauce, a kids menu, refreshing beverages, tailgates. They've got it all. Follow Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers on social media. They are open daily. And welcome to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris on the Audacy app, wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, as well as Spotify, all over social media as well. This segment is brought to you by Ocean Grill Buffet, largest all-you-can-eat in the area. Give them a call at 757-828-6828, 3877 Holland Road in Virginia Beach. Excellent Asian delicacy right there at Ocean Grill Buffet, open for lunch and dinner. It's a pleasure to talk to Jordan Kent from CBS Sports and CBS Sports Network. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Very good, very good. We had a chance to work this summer at a WNBA game, and let's start off right there. It's almost time for the playoffs, and should be very exciting this year.
It really should be, and I think what's going to be fascinating is two things. Number one, you've got the Liberty that are the number one seed in the playoffs, and they've been playing the best basketball of the year consistently. People are wondering if the Aces can repeat again. I just think New York's playing at a different level, and so will anybody be able to knock them off after they fell to Las Vegas last year? And then, of course, Caitlin Clark in the playoffs. Now, she has a really difficult first-round matchup if it holds this way against Connecticut. We had a chance to call Connecticut at Dallas earlier this year, and Connecticut was just one of those teams that was really under the radar for the majority of the season, but they've got a lot of vets. They play some of the best defense in the league as well, too, and so that challenge against Caitlin Clark and obviously the attention and the energy she brings and the fact that Indiana's playing better than they played all season long right now, the fever are kind of peaking, and it'll be a really intriguing matchup, that 3 versus 6 to get things started.
Yeah, that'll be a tough 40 minutes for no matter who is playing and who gets ahead. Talk about, will CBS be involved at all in the postseason or no?
They won't. ESPN, I believe, has the majority of those games. CBS had a small package for this past season, but I think they're looking to possibly expand that package for next year. And obviously the league is growing. You saw the news that came out this week as far as Portland being the 15th franchise that'll be starting play in 2026. You've also got a Bay Area team that's going to be joining next year as well, too. And so as this league grows, obviously the demands for broadcasting the games will increase as well. So my thoughts are that CBS will have a little bit larger package next year potentially.
And that's great about Portland. Of course, you went to Oregon, so you know that area very well. Mm-hmm. So your thoughts about that?
It's a great sports area of the country, and sometimes it gets forgotten because it's tucked way up there in the Pacific Northwest and is really on an island of its own compared to the rest of the NBA world when you look at those cities. And they had a team for about 2 years. I think it was 2000 to 2002, or it might have been 01 to 03, called the Portland Fire. And I believe they're the first ever city to get a franchise back and running again. And the owner of the Fire is the owner of the Portland Thorns. And, the fans in the Northwest are very passionate about their teams. That's one thing that you've never seen in all the years that you've had professional sports in the Pacific Northwest, is a lack of attendance. All the games are attended very well, whether it's Portland, whether it's the Mariners and the Seahawks. You've seen how exciting people are about the Kraken. So I think they're going to have no problem filling the arena, especially given the excitement of the WNBA right now. And I think it's a wonderful move by the league to add Portland. And I think eventually we're going to get to the point where we're going to start seeing more and more of these franchises take shape. And I like the way the WNBA is doing it. They're being measured with their growth as well, too, because you've got a new TV contract. How do you capitalize off of that, especially with more stars coming into the league over the next couple of years through the college ranks?
Yeah, I'd like to see Seattle get a team back in the NBA as well.
Yeah, there's been talks about that, right? If you're the NBA, right now your product has never been hotter. You just signed the richest TV deal in league history. And if you look at just the map, there's two prime locations in Seattle and Las Vegas. That makes too much sense. And especially if you consider, hey, we're going to kick over either a New Orleans or a Memphis to the east, then you have balance as well, too. And so I think Seattle deserves a team more than anybody else. I was playing for the Seahawks when the Sonics got moved to Oklahoma City, and it was kind of hoodwinked as far as how Oklahoma City got them. Clay Bennett, the owner, is from Oklahoma City, and people thought Seattle really got a raw deal in that one. And so you would love to see Seattle more than any other city in professional sports get the next team. And if they can get an NBA team, there's going to be zero question about the fan support and the excitement in that city around that ball club.
We're talking to Jordan Kent from the CBS Sports Network and CBS. His father, of course, is Ernie Kent, who was the head basketball coach at Washington State. What are your dad's thoughts about this whole Pac-12 realignment? Because that's really a lot of traveling, Jordan, for a team to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, especially those Olympic sports when you have limited time to study and the weather is very harsh.
Yeah, nobody likes it, to be honest, at least from a lot of Pac-12 alumnus like myself, like my dad, that were in this conference in its heyday when it was the Pacific 10 even before we got to the Pac-12. And listen, Cal and Stanford specifically joining the ACC, that was kind of a last-ditch effort because they needed to find a home. They had the opportunity to join a major conference that had other schools that were at the same level as them academically, if you look at a Duke and a Wake Forest and whatnot. So that one I kind of understand, but all of this was driven by football. We can't forget that. All of this change was driven by football. And for football, you're flying to maybe 5 or 6 games per year. You're staying 1, maybe 2 nights, and that's it. The travel's not bad at all if you're sitting on a plane for a couple more hours. You hit it right on the head. It's the Olympic sports and sports like basketball where you've got such a higher frequency of games where this travel is going to get really old really quick. And all of a sudden you go from a quick flight staying in the same time zone that's between 90 minutes to 2 hours to crossing multiple time zones, having to leave at the beginning of the day, getting there late at night, getting back late at night or early in the morning with classes the next day. And I think what we're going to see here in the next couple of years is that these decisions to cross so many geographic borders to be a part of a conference, unless your school is thriving as far as dominating the conference and some of those really big-time sports, those revenue-generating sports, I think a lot of schools are going to regret the decision. Sure, I understand the bottom line, but so many of these athletic departments were coming off of a really brutal 2020 fiscal year where COVID just wrecked all their finances between not having live sports to do and seasons being canceled, yet you still have to pay coaches and staff and all that. It's going to take some time to bounce back from that. And I think a lot of schools are just chasing a quicker dollar. But at the end of the day, football's going to drive all the change that we're going to see. And don't be surprised if the next TV contract cycle, whether that's 6 years or 8 years, we're going to see something like the NFL light, because there's still too much money out there that can be consolidated by teams that are in position to make the most of these opportunities.
Talking to Jordan Kent, Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us. Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris on the Audacy app, wherever you get your podcast as well, including Spotify, Apple, and of course YouTube. And we mentioned, football is once a week. It's not too big of a deal, but the rivalry's gone. The mystique is gone. People on the West Coast aren't too happy about it. People on the East Coast aren't too happy about it. And like you said, a couple of the West Coast teams that went to the ACC probably could have waited a year and maybe rejoined the Pac-12 next year.
Possibly. The big difference just comes down to, again, dollars. I think the ACC payout, and I know Cal and Stanford aren't taking a proportional share of that compared to the other members of the ACC, and now you have conversations with Clemson and Florida State arguing that they deserve a higher share and what's going to happen there. But keep in mind, right now, the estimated payout per institution of this new Pac-6 or whatever you want to call it is between $7 to $11 million, which is still more than what these Mountain West schools are making. And the argument that these schools were making, Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, is that they felt there was about 2, 3, 4 teams in the bottom of the Mountain West that was really kind of anchoring the conference down as a whole. And these 4 programs that made the investments in facilities and upgrades and want to step up to a bigger table, that's why they joined the prestige and the branding of the Pac-12. And at the end of the day, Cal and Stanford, they might have a decision to make based upon what the status of the ACC is. They might not have a choice in another 6 to 8 years. And the idea of coming back to a Pac-12 might be alluring, but if you're looking at the other members as far as Oregon, Washington, I don't see them leaving the Big Ten anytime soon. The Big 12 obviously has got a position to where it can maybe make a move to be one of the 3 top conferences potentially. So right now, the direction that this Pac-6 is going is smart. You don't need to necessarily go out and get everybody, but you just want to be stable if you're a conference. I think that's the most important thing in the next 10 to 15 years is how stable can you be? Can you make sure that you can hang on to your best teams while still fielding competitive programs that are going to be on the national scene? I think the Pac-12 is positioned to do that.
Tell us finally, Jordan, your schedule. You've been doing some college football games on the CBS Sports Network, and when will we see you on CBS again?
Yeah, we've got UConn hosting Florida Atlantic this weekend. It's one of 3 straight UConn games we have, and they have a 6-game homestand coming up, which is just unheard of in college football, but they get a chance to enjoy that. So we'll be getting really familiar with East Hartford, where the stadium's located, but myself and Logan Ryan, who this is his first year. Many people remember him winning 2 Super Bowl rings with the Patriots, played with the Niners in the Super Bowl last year. He's been doing a great job in his first year as an analyst. So we're together for 12 of my 14 games, and we're really just enjoying it. We had a chance to see Florida Atlantic play Army the other day, and I will tell you this much. Army is one of my dark horse teams from the group of 5 or whatever you want to call it that is going to make some noise this year. They've got skill position players all over the place. That triple option takes months for teams to prepare for, and they are a very fun team to watch. So keep an eye on Army is what I would say after this young season and the start to it so far.
Yeah, Army-Navy is always a lot of fun. Jordan, all the best to you. I appreciate your time and your talent, and, of course, hopefully we can talk to you again in the future as basketball season really heats up.
Absolutely. You take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Very good. Jordan Kent right there from CBS Sports and CBS Sports Network. Stay tuned.
Sakura Japanese Restaurant in Chesapeake is your destination for excellent Japanese food, featuring fresh sushi and hot dishes prepared in the kitchen for lunch and dinner. Sakura is located at 1437 Sam's Drive at the Walmart Way Crossing. Oh Yummy Sushi is at the Renaissance Place at 401 North Great Neck Road in Virginia Beach. Both Sakura in Chesapeake and Oh Yummy Sushi in Virginia Beach are available with DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, and Pickup. Tasty Japanese food the way you want it is at Sakura and Oh Yummy Sushi.
Thanks to our good friends at Lee Matney Art Consultancy and Gallery, Photographs and Art Consulting right there in beautiful Williamsburg. Iconic paintings and photographs. They've got a lot of great resources, pop, art, surrealism, and of course, abstraction right there at Linda Matney Art Gallery, the Colonial Capital on Richmond Road. Google them, follow them on social media.
Mi Hogar is your restaurant for the finest Mexican cuisine in Hampton Roads. At Mi Hogar, everything is prepared fresh in a casual and comfortable atmosphere. Enjoy traditional favorites such as quesadillas, tacos, burritos, and fajitas, as well as refreshing beverages. Mi Hogar is located at 4201 Granby Street and is a tradition in Norfolk. Call 640-7705 and log on to MiHogarMexicanRestaurant.com. At Mi Hogar, there's something for everyone.
Let's welcome Mikol Mills with Peninsula former athletes. He went to Pembroke High School. It's football season. Mikol, welcome to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
Hey, Greg, thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure, Mikol. Good to talk to you. Let's talk about this. And when you talk about Peninsula former athletes, that encompasses a lot of different athletes, a lot of great programs.
We are the former athletes of the Peninsula, so from the athletes that came through from Leroy Keys, Chris Hamburger, Norm Sneed, Michael Vick, Allen Iverson, even the coach at New England right now came through the Peninsula former athletes. Can't think of his name right off, but he was one of the athletes that came, through Peninsula former athletes as an athlete.
Of course, you talk about all the great state championships that Bethel won in Hampton and Phoebus, and you go back to the 70s when Ron Springs and Lawrence Taylor. It's a lot of great athletes and a lot of different sports, too, as well, Mikol.
Yeah, we feel pretty good with sports on the Peninsula. We've, of course, we got some state championships under our belt, football, basketball, track, so we definitely don't put, the Peninsula has definitely put the state of Virginia on the map as far as athletics from the 70s and 80s and on through even to today. We're still doing pretty good. Woodside just won the state championship in basketball last year, so things are going well for athletics on the Peninsula.
You were talking about Gerard Mayo. He's the coach of the
yes.
Patriots, and he went to Kickingham High School. That's just really great that so many athletes are not only flourishing on the field but also coaching as well.
Yeah, those guys come back. I had got a conversation with Ronald Curry a couple of years ago when he was going down to New Orleans Saints to become one of the quarterback coaches. I think he's quarterback or receivers coach down in New Orleans. So, yeah, those guys do stay with it and get on these coaching levels, which is great,
Talking to Mikol Mills, talking all types of sports on the Peninsula, former athletes, and you look at Ferguson's basketball legacy with the late George Walters or Jim Harvey when he was at Warwick, but you can go on and on, but football and basketball and also other sports too, and you guys are involved with cheerleading too.
The cheerleaders do well. As a matter of fact, I think a couple of years ago, like in 85 or 86, they actually turned cheerleading into a sport. Into an athletic thing, where one time it just be the cheerleaders. Now it actually comes down as a sport. So they fall under the sporting realm as an athlete right now, as far as, the VHSL is concerned.
So many great memories. I went to Ferguson class of 85. When Ted Bako was the head football coach, and of course he was good friends with the late Thad Madden, and Thad Madden coached Warwick and Huntington. He coached Warwick up until 1980, but the legacy of so many great coaches that have gone on that they've inherited to their players who are now athletic directors or administrators, it really is like an olive tree in a branch.
Well, a couple of years ago, now that you're speaking on that, I was doing some research on Google, right? So I Googled up and saw that Coach Mike Smith from Hampton High School became the third winningest coach in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read that, I got in touch with the city of Hampton and Darling Stadium. So we actually put up a sign in Darling Stadium commemorating and letting everybody know that he became the third winningest coach in the nation as far as high school sports. And that's really an outstanding feat compared to all the high schools that are in the country,
Oh, no question. He coached Hampton from 71 all the way to 2021. That's unheard of. He was an assistant before then. But I remember as a kid, my mom taught at Bethel, and she would have Sean Gale and Jimmy Gale come over. Of course, they both played for Ohio State. And, of course, Sean played for the Bears. It's just it's how you grow up. It's all like doesn't matter what school we went to. It's all a brotherhood. And all of us that played a sport, or whether we did or not, whether we just went to a game and just watched it or were involved in the media. I mean, I played tennis, but I always enjoyed watching the football and basketball and seeing the great chess matchups, especially between Kaz and Mike Smith.
Yes, back in the day, that was the ultimate matchup. Whoever won that game between Hampton and Bethel during those mid-'70s and late 70s was going to be the state champion. That's the way it basically went back there between those two schools. Kozlowski ran that awesome wishbone. And, you know, Mike Smith was known for his defense. So when they locked heads, it was always the game to see.
Right. What I like, too, Michael, was the tradition of the uniforms, too. And that's the way they can honor the past. When Bethel played, it was green and gold or white and gold or white and white. Hampton, for the most part, red, white, and black uniforms. But there is something about uniforms and being clean and being respectful. Because a lot of times back then, the players were just, they were not getting in any type of trouble, and there was no distractions. I mean, there was no smartphones or iPhones either. It was all about football, going home, getting your homework done, and going back the next day.
Yeah, things have really changed in the athletic world, and some of the other athletes, the older athletes that I was talking to, and periodically, over the time, that's some of the things we were talking about on how things have changed, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse, because this modern technology with the cell phones, with all the camera phones, and the Facebook and Instagram with all the pictures, everything is magnified so much now compared to back then the way it was when we played. So we take notice of that. It's a good thing. Sometimes, it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, but so you know how life is and how society is. You got to move with the times and stay with the times.
Right. It's good for being transparent, but also, doesn't give much for privacy either.
Right.
That's the only
Correct.
thing. Talk about the Peninsula former athletes on social media and what type of events can people get involved in?
Well, as I said, the Peninsula Former Athletes, we've been around since 2012. I'm the founder and director of the Peninsula Former Athletes. And, when I came up with the concept, a young man named Mikol and we decided to do the concept about bringing the old athletes back together and kind of help to mentor some of the younger athletes about getting into school, what to do at the next level, respect, for your coaches and your peers. And it's just something that grew, and, a lot of the former athletes from the Peninsula got involved with it. So right now we do a bunch of things in the organization as far as, sports is concerned. We do the Allen Iverson Christmas tournament at Bethel. We also do the Peninsula All-District Banquet at Holiday Inn. And we came up with that concept because, if you think of back in the day, when you became, all district clear, the only thing you got was your name in the paper. So now what we do is we have a big banquet. We have guest speakers that come in, with some of the former players who played in the NFL or played high-level college ball. We have them come back and give a speech. We give the kids trophies. We give them a big dinner. We invite their parents out. And, from an organizational standpoint, we're just trying to give back to the, the younger athletes, the neighborhood, the community, our city, the peninsula. And that's the concept of our organization.
Right, and people can join the group on Facebook, but like Michael said, a lot of good transparency there, giving back to the community, being proactive in the community, honoring the past, the present, and like you said, moving with the future as well. Give us your final thought, Michael.
Well, my final thought is the thing that we're trying to figure out as an organization right now is how can we start to get some of the fans and parents back into the seats of high school football. There's been a serious decline on attendance level of these marquee athletes coming through, the athletic realm right now. If you go to a football game back in the day when we were there, Darling Stadium, Todd Stadium would be packed. Nowadays, for whatever reason, there's limited people coming to see these guys perform, and they're still playing at a high level just like we did. But for whatever reason, society now has kind of fallen back from actually going to the football and basketball games as far as, from the way we look at it from an older standpoint. So one of the things the organization is working on, we start working on with this football season and basketball season, trying to propel and promote and get some of the fans and the parents back into the stadium to see these kids perform, because some of them will not play at the next level of college and in the pros. So we try to catch them in their high school days, their glory years, and give them something to go on.
Yeah, it's kind of like what John Thompson said, the late John Thompson, what are you going to do when the basketball is flat? But it really is up to the community and the parents, because it's about matched effort and matched energy, and these kids need self-esteem. There's a lot of negative out there, and sometimes football is their only escape, and it might be their last time ever playing a team sport.
Yes, exactly. That's one of the things we try to key into. We're trying to reach out to, the parents, the former athletes. We try to get them to get involved with it as well. Things have picked up. I think we're doing a job, but there's still a lot of work that we need to be done, and we're still working on doing it. And thanks to guys like you, Greg, we can put this stuff out there and let people know exactly what's going on, because your platform is awesome. I really appreciate, this time for this interview, man. And I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Absolutely. We sure will. First of the year, we'll do that. Mikol Mills right there, the Peninsula, former athletes making an impact on the community in the 757-804 and throughout Virginia. Have a wonderful rest of the day, Mikol.
Thank you very much, Greg. Y'all have a good one, too.
My pleasure. Mikol Mills right there of the Peninsula, former athlete. Stay tuned. Sakura Sushi Bar is now open in Virginia Beach. For a one-of-a-kind dining experience, Sakura in Red Mill is a favorite of locals and tourists. Tasty sushi prepared fresh for you, as well as delicious entrees from the kitchen. This is the go-to place for sushi lovers. Enjoy lunch and dinner daily with some refreshing cocktails and adult beverages. Sakura Sushi Bar is located at 2137 Upton Drive and is open daily. Call 757-522-7288 and enjoy your next meal at Sakura Sushi Bar at Red Mill Commons. All right, connect with Greg Bicouvaris on Facebook, on YouTube at Greg Bick, that's GregBic. Our website is gjbtv.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Greg Bicouvaris. Connect with me on X at Greg Bick, GregBic. Of course, our show's on Audacy and wherever you get your podcast as well. Thank you.
So, what's Greg's problem?
I'm very mad!
God, I'm so mad right now!
I know you're mad. I know you're upset.
It's time for What Tees Greg Off.
All right, What Tees Me Off, always fun right here on Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris on the Audacy app, wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Ken, people that block aisles, block entrances, or block pathways to an entrance or an exit.
Just pay attention.
Rumors, gossip, he said, she said. Come on, folks, unless you got proof, stop gossiping, stop doing rumors, because you only feel bad yourself, not the other person.
Hate gossip, don't want to participate.
People that plan big events and big parties only to flop, they can't handle it, they are asked what's the status, and they basically go blank.
Is this something that happened to you recently?
Well, it's just not just me, but people that are planning huge events, 200 plus, then just show up and vanish like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
You got to have your bleep together.
Yes.
Okay, what tees me off? Poison oak.
Oh, yeah.
Poison oak is no joke. I was doing some weeding. I had long pants, gloves, boots, and I got this stuff all over my arms because I was wearing short sleeves. So prednisone, steroid creams, it was horrible. It spreads like crazy. Ice cream. When you walk into an ice cream store in Virginia Beach Town Center and it smells like the inside of a dumpster.
Oh boy.
Now I don't want to say the name of the place because I don't want to, be sued or something. But it rhymes with old bone scenery. I guess you could figure it out. And finally, people barging into the room. You're sitting there minding your own business and then wham! The door flies open, and it scares the hell out of me, Greg.
Yeah, or people tapping you or touching you from behind. Don't touch me. Just say, hey, excuse me.
No tapping.
I don't need a tapping or anything like that. Or just, like you said, people that make a lot of noises. And speaking of noises, too, I want to add one more thing. Taking your trash out late at night and then being greeted by a couple deers in your backyard is not exactly fun either. That's what tees us off. I want to thank our guests today on the September edition of Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris, Jim Ducibella, Jordan Kent, and Mikol Mills. Also our producer, Ken Carson. For more, go to gjbtv.com. Sports Scene is on the Audacy app, wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube and all over social media. I'm Greg Bicouvaris. We'll talk to you soon.